When Jesus called the disciples, he required them to leave everything they loved and followed him. Matthew 10:27 through 39. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. He knew that they would need to focus on who he was and the mission ordained by God, the mission to return God's people to him. In Matthew 4:19 through 23, Jesus called his first disciples. 4:19, come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew, along with James and John, sons of Zebedee, did just that. They left everything and followed Christ immediately. Can you imagine Jesus coming today and demanding that you follow him? Would you know him if you had not lived a life following his teaching? The birth of Christianity was no small feat in that Jesus had 3 years to teach his followers the need to sacrifice one's desire to meet the needs of others, that the promise of eternal salvation was much greater than the material possessions and fleshly desires of the world. He impressed upon them that there was plenty of work, but the laborers were few. As Jesus went about teaching and healing all those who had a heart to receive him, he was preparing the disciples for the work to come. He displayed how courage and commitment to one's belief would be challenged, but if maintained by the faith, it would be counted unto them. But Jesus sent the 12 out. He gave them the authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every sickness and disease. Matthew 10:1. For a moment, consider the possibility that someone you know who was a good person but held a menial position. Then one day you came across that person while in the hospital. That person radiated with compassion and strength of the Holy Spirit. Imagine just for a moment that he touched the sole of your feet and immediately you became well. What would that do for your faith? Would you realize that God uses the least of men to be elevated to do his work? That this good and humble man was an instrument of God? This is no less than what Jesus did with the disciples. He took ordinary people with no political or social status and turned them into healers of God's people. Jesus prepared the disciples for the work, but first they had to give up their earthly possessions, surrender to him, and believe that he was sent by God for mankind. His ultimate lesson to them was the cross, that the mission God had dispatched him to do was at hand. As he hung on that cross, he said, not my will, but your will be done. At that moment, he returned God's people back to him. But the story was not over, for on the third day he arose, and the new covenant began at the resurrection. The disciples were strengthened in their belief and resolve. The church was birthed. The world would never be the same, for this humble carpenter turned rabbi made a command to simply follow him.